Hi, the poem I'm about to read is called Canada, and it was written back in the year 2000, and a couple of years later, in 2002, it surfaced in a earlier chapbook of mine called Engagement Day. And here it is, a poem about British Columbia called Canada. 1. Canada is not the United States. Canada is not Los Angeles. Canada is someplace entirely different. Canada is an oasis of civility in a world gone mad. 2. I love Canada. I spent 5 days in Victoria and Vancouver, British Columbia. I enjoyed visiting all the tourist shops located along Government Street in Victoria. One day, I boarded a Grey Line bus and became briefly acquainted with the parks, hillsides, and totem poles of downtown Vancouver. More than a few times, I stood still to keep from blocking the view of other foreign tourists as they snapped photos of the natural and human-made wonders of British Columbia. By the end of my vacation, I was seriously considering applying for dual U.S.-Canada citizenship. 3. I love Canadian TV. News shows contain actual news. I took comfort in the knowledge that I could switch from Regis Philbin urging George W. Bush to go mano a mano with Saddam to live coverage of the Canadian Parliament. After a few minutes, I began to wish that some of the men and women serving in the Canadian Parliament were U.S. citizens eligible to run for president. 4. I love the street performers of Canada. On our final morning in Victoria, my significant other and I took one last walk around the city's inner harbor when we encountered a street performer named Tom Jones. Tom, dressed in gold and white 18th century finery, read a love poem to my significant other. She blushed. Afterwards, Tom asked me where I was from. When I told him, he inquired as to the state of the American film industry. Actually, I replied, most of the American film industry seems to have relocated to Canada. Tom smiled and, as we said our farewells, asked us if we could put in a good word for him with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. 5. I love Canadian drivers. One night, I was crossing Government Street when I was almost hit by a minivan. It was my fault. I failed to notice the walk, don't walk sign before I stepped into the crosswalk. The driver of the minivan merely honked at me. If this had happened in the States, the driver would have rolled down his window, extended his left middle finger, and uttered 2 or 3 obscenities at me before speeding off. In Canada, the punishment for carelessness is less severe. 6. It's been more than 2 weeks since the end of my Canadian vacation, and I'm fighting the temptation to go back. I don't like what I see in the U.S. I see couples walking hand in hand, each of them using a cell phone. Presumably, they're not talking to each other. I see people routinely failing to say please or excuse me or thank you as they rush in front of other people to grab what they think is theirs. I see businesses, public and private, seeking to maximize profit margins at the expense of quality of life of employees. I know I won't be able to afford to move to Canada, even part-time, but that doesn't mean I can't pretend to be a Canadian and behave politely and courteously to friends and strangers alike. Sometimes, in this world we live in, it's better to walk than to run. Thank you.